So um, I stole the idea from New Jersey's board. They have a book club, and I said we should too. So I asked a few people, and Emily and Sandra volunteered to be on the committee, and so did Janelle, but she had a last minute scheduling conflict she couldn't control, so she couldn't make it tonight. But we we deliberated over our first book, and Upstairs at the White House, I think, was a perfect book for our first choice. It's an election year, they're changing the White House. I just think it's pretty great for work from home. And um, the person who brought it to everyone's attention was Sandra. So I'd like to pass it over to her to talk about her thoughts. Oh, first, let's take a poll. Who stayed up past their bedtime last night to finish this?
Kinda. I actually did one better. I probably read 100 pages yesterday because I had my second shot on Sunday and I had side effects. So I called off sick yesterday and I sat in a comfy easy chair and read for hours. And I'm like, well, it is kind of work related.
There you go. I cheated and I did the audiobook.
That's not cheating. That's still reading.
No, there was an audiobook.
It's actually quite, it's a very good narrator. It's a nice listen for when I was at work and trying to do other things and design things, and I could just listen to that in the background. And it was interesting enough that I was able to follow it, even though I didn't have the book in front of me. So. And Peter, did you read it or listen?
I listen.
You listen. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not the fans of reading books.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just joining and listen. Okay.
Well, that's funny because I do about 20 audiobooks a week and probably one written book a week.
Oh my God.
But I literally listen to audiobooks all day long because, I can have it going on. I work in an open space office, and because I'm a chatter, if I don't have something to focus on, I start answering this person's questions and that person's question, then my work doesn't get done. So I pop an audiobook in, and if I get into my work and I miss something, you just hit rewind and I go back and re-listen to it. But I do about 20 audiobooks a week.
Wow.
And
wow.
for work,
That's
during work, and plus I listen to them to go to sleep at night. It's not really impressive. It's pure laziness. The books I read are the ones that I really feel I have to have that physical book in my hand. So,
Well,
okay.
I have to confess.
So
sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, so Sandra, tell us how you first heard about this and got interested in this book.
Oh, this was one of my COVID reads. I was just, I'm not sure what the search engine was. I read it as a library book to start with. And I got the online because the libraries closed down. This was a pandemic read. The libraries had closed down. I had a Libby account, which meant that I could borrow the books and read them on my iPad. And I had a tendency to read historical fiction. And so I'm not sure what it was that I searched that I found this book came up upstairs at the White House. And I found that there was a lot in it that I had no idea. And then when we started chatting, I thought, number one, from an interior design perspective, so number one, we're looking at temporary housing here, right? No one lives there permanently. Everybody that comes in, it's temporary housing. And every one of the president's wives goes through the motions of how to make the space their own. And I was just entertained by that thought because it's the president.
Yeah.
It's his
What,
wife.
what floored me is I never knew it was like condemned. They basically condemned it and said, you can't live here. I was like,
During the Truman era,
yeah. I mean,
that much I did know.
I had heard that, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't know that they almost decided to tear it down.
Yeah.
yeah.
That had never entered my mind, that they would think that it's an option. Let's tear it down and build something else.
We are American. It's funny because my husband's from England and I'm from America. And in one of my things that we were comparing things, I was working for the Canal Association, and we were talking about historical building and preservation for the Erie Canal. And his family just laughed at me because they're like, that's 200 years old. That's not that's a new home in Europe.
That's right.
They're like, their buildings are still preserved from AD. Ours are like, it's like, oh, my house was built in 1900. And it's like, I have a historical home according to American standards, and in Europe, it's a brand new building.
build.
Yeah, a new build. Nobody cares if I knock it down. It's not worth it.
The other thing that I found I always thought that the Lincoln bedroom was the Lincoln bedroom. Like,
not just a name.
I didn't realize that they moved it around. Like, no wonder he haunts the floor, right? Because they keep moving his room and putting other people in there. So I thought that was, so anyway, so I thought as interior designers, and of course, looking at some of the images of what the first ladies did, like, I think Jackie Kennedy had just impeccable taste. And I think that what she did to ramp up the interior, to turn it into basically the showplace and a museum space, I thought was that it hadn't been done before, also stupefied me.
The fact that was her mission for her time as the first lady. I mean, we've had people beautify roads. We've had people, work on foreign. Nobody ever thought, let's bring it home. That to me was just amazing.
She did it in a compressed time, not knowing that it was going to be a compressed time. If she would have had that extra year and a half, what would it have been? Didn't you wonder about that? Like, oh, it was I cried after that chapter.
Yeah, she well, I mean, she's always in like the top 100 most influential women. But the thing that amazed me is that she kept her French designer for her personal room. And as much as she loved everything he did, she's like, I can't use him on the White House. She's like, I can't get away with it, which is so true in politics. I worked as a campaign coordinator and manager for the evil Republican Party years ago in Washington, D.C. And it's funny, it's like, even when we do parades, you watch the candidates' cars, because you will never see a candidate in a foreign car. I mean, because it was just one person will say something and it balloons. And for her to know that, okay, this one sunroom for just me and my family and my entertainment, I'm going to use my designer. And it turns out to be every first lady's favorite room. It's like one of the rooms nobody touched.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think also equally impressive is that Lady Bird decided to carry on. If it would have been anybody else who said, yeah, thanks, Jackie, bye.
Yeah.
It would have been such a wasted effort. And
right, establishing that foundation and
yeah,
to kind of make it so that it had to continue on that way. Just really changed the whole dynamic of that house. And the level of staff that had to be increased just to accommodate.
Yeah.
So I have
what-
a question.
Okay.
When I looked at some of the images though, I thought some of the first ladies had the absolute worst taste. I thought some of their spaces were just hideous. And so I just wonder what other people think.
Well, that goes with a piece of that personal preference, right? That you have to work within.
Well, I found it, being an event planner, I found it very interesting how like they changed certain, like to an E format table, and got rid of it so they could seat more people and have more face to face and everything. And I found that very interesting, but I'm not an interior designer. You can see behind me, my walls are orange rag rolled. That was like a creative thing I let my kid do like 15 years ago, and it hasn't been touched. Um, so from a non-designer perspective, yes, I felt some of the people really cared about the aesthetic of the building, and other people were just like functional, like, okay, I'm going to go through the furniture that's available and give me that. So it was like function versus design, but Jackie's stuff was all amazing.
What did you think? Sorry, I was going to say, what did you think when the Nixon had to take down all the indigenous artwork because it creeped them out?
I think it fit their politics.
He was scared of a lot of things for obvious reasons, right?
Well, if you listen to a lot of his tapes, he was a very racist man. So it would fit that his kids would follow.
And very black and white. His perspective was correct. So like they're showing this indigenous art, and indigenous art doesn't always make the white man in the photo the good guy.
Right.
So it wasn't that they were opposed to Indian art, they were opposed to authentic Indian art is what I took from it, is like this racist, we was just, I'm trying to find a way to say it politely.
I don't think there is a way.
Okay. Well, being that I already confessed I work for, I can say a typical Republican male. So, and I can say that as a Republican that was raised by a typical Republican male. We call them the camel hair coat club. Us feminazis in the Republican Party, because it's the old boys club and they all have that same camel hair coat and everything. But women are subservient. Every ethnicity isn't as good as mine. You have to be Catholic. It's just, to me, I saw a lot of politics even in like the different first ladies decorating, and how much they are involved with the government versus what they were willing to do to decorate. I think Lady Bird was the only one that balanced that.
I took a moment I kind of thought about how when he started the book, Eleanor Roosevelt just had her personal pictures plastered on the wall everywhere. And it really was just her temporary home. But then when we're leaving with the Nixons, it was definitely more of an institution. I don't think these people were going to even think about plastering their pictures all over the wall like they could. That it would have to be some sort of official portraiture.
Yeah, because those walls were hideous. In the Roosevelt years, I mean, and talk about what blew me away in those years was how much use that house got. It was like a hotel. That was, really not just a temporary residence, but it's also functions as a hospitality hotel type.
A venue.
Yeah. And, and the people that lived, and then there's the people that lived there, I'm like, oh my gosh.
I think and you can tell that again by the incoming couple. Like you're talking about all the personal photo stuff like that, they come from a military background. So they're used to a transient life. So you slap your family photos up and things so you can feel at home again when you move from base to base to base. And then you get someone like the Johnsons who've been together since high school, and they're more open to their family travels with them because they've been together that whole time. They always have that piece of home with them. I think it reflects a lot of their relationships as well.
So I have a question. What did you think of, because you brought up the military, what did you think of what Mamie Eisenhower did to her husband in the room that he had
I
to
really
sleep in?
struggled through the Eisenhower era. The plush pink bed.
Could you picture that? I was just picturing her. But you know what was really fascinating by what the author, like at first I was like, oh, she's a piece of work. But then by the end, he was like, they really grew to like her, and she was so good to the staff that it was like you forgot how like kind of nasty she was and demanding at the beginning of the presidency.
From his language, I kind of got the feeling like she was forever his frenemy.
That's a good way to put it.
And she probably was that way to most people, I would think. Like they would enjoy her casually, but would not want her around all the time.
That's a good way of putting that.
Yeah.
I kind of got that image from her.
Yeah.
You're impressive in small doses.
Yeah, but what I kind of was a little surprised about, like, he made an effort to talk about how Mamie wanted her presence known. They had to rearrange the environment so that she was like platformed. But then later on, Jackie Kennedy got a platform, but it was no big deal. And I don't know if that platform was for her or for other entertainment, but
I think the problem was where she wanted it, because she put it in the East Room, which was historic.
And higher on the staircase. And, you know, she had a lot of prima donna moves that she did early on.
Yeah, don't stand above me. I'll be on the top step.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, it's funny because most politicians do have their own podium. And like when Pataki was governor, he's almost 6'6". And our local senator here in Rochester was 5'1". And you couldn't see him behind Pataki's podium. So we had to build one of those old baby steps that you use your foot to come out like in church. So he could stand up on the podium and you would still only see this much of him. But I can stand behind Pataki's podium and you'll just see the tip of my head. But most of them all have their own podiums.
I'm going to give you a fun fact. The cabinet room in the White House, all that furniture comes from Kittinger Furniture right here in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And they have a replica of the cabinet room in their showroom. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we've had a couple of meetings there. It's really fun.
Yeah.
But all the chairs, so the chair that when you're in the cabinet, the chair that you get is your chair. You get, when you leave, you take your chair with you. So everybody, they're all identical, but you get to keep your chair. And all the chairs are the same except for the president's chair, which is taller than everybody else's. Always has been. That's the way it's set up. So the president is always sitting a little bit taller than everybody else.
Isn't that something, how that psychology? I worked for Gunlock many, many years ago, and they will still tout that the president's chair, I believe it was up to Johnson or Nixon, was a Gunlock chair.
Yep.
So there's some like local roots, you know, to the White House and you know, things like that. So could anybody relate this to a project that they've worked on, any part of it, you know, the idiosyncrasies that you deal with? personalities, hierarchy.
I can, but not from a design standpoint. I mean,
Yeah, I was talking design, yeah.
yeah, no,
I think oftentimes it's just that people's imagination is bigger than their budget, which seemed to be the case every time they had to do something.
There was another eye opener that there was a budget, and the working budget of the White House was not that exorbitant.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
it was pretty interesting to see how they split the money too, how which entertainment came from personal funds and which came from government funds.
yeah.
well, can you believe the salaries they were willing to work for to work in the White House? That's what, I mean, those people are on call 24/7, every holiday, everything. And they were making like at the low end of upper middle class type things throughout the whole thing. And oh, we have 10 people on staff, but you're going to bring 5 of your own. So we're going to lay off 5 people.
Yeah.
So you can pay them out of the budget. That to me was crazy.
Yeah, but Jackie Kennedy was such an innovator, putting the kitchen on the second floor like that. It was one of those things where I was like, why didn't anybody think of doing something like that before? Why would they? But I guess it goes to a personality where some people will mold to fit their space and some people force their space to fit them. And I think Jackie Kennedy was more of the person that made the space change to suit her.
Right.
Where the Trumans kind of just was like, okay, let's just leave everything the same. And
And it was just so vanilla boxy, just very blah, kind of like them.
Yeah, especially when she was like, no, let the store people pick it out. And I thought, man, if I was on staff for that, wouldn't that be so great?
Yeah, and we're talking department stores. They weren't even going to design houses or, you know what I mean, design firms or anything. It was, the old quintessential
Sears catalog.
Well, it was probably more like I don't know. I'm trying to think of some of the big department stores in DC at that time, like it would be the equivalent of like Sibley's here or, in Buffalo, I mean, they had nice stuff, but nothing like I could buy that, type of stuff. Yeah.
Not stuff that you're going to consider historical in another 30 years. No one's going to think their IKEA desk is now an antique.
Yeah.
The other thing that kind of struck me, I think it was Lady Bird Johnson had to pick out some lampshades, and she was just aghast at them costing $100. And it's one of those things where you think, well, gosh, this is a historical mansion. You expect something of quality to cost something. And that Mr. West had to point out, well, that's really cheap. I think the people who live in that environment kind of take it for granted because they can just go from one to the next, and the environment doesn't change that much because it's already been established.
Right.
Well, I can't imagine what they go through with just the simple changes, because think how much it just takes, for me, again, not a designer, but if I want to change the handles on my kitchen cabinets, we're talking $1,000, but for all the different cabinet lures and stuff like that. And to make them all match in a rooms across the White House has got to be astronomical. And that's just fixtures, basic fixtures.
Oh, yeah.
So did anybody pick a favorite first lady?
Oh, yeah. Does it go without saying?
I think it was Mr. West's favorite first lady too. She got the bulk of the book.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for like what, 2 years, 10 months and 2 weeks. Like, yeah, it was many, many chapters.
I actually preferred Ladybird. I just thought she is such an inspiration for women because she she was the first lady to come in there and say, I'm not running the household, you run it. And she ran her husband's campaign office. She ran, she was the first lady to be an ambassador. I mean, she was just an amazing forefront for women moving forward. I mean, and she could do it all on a budget.
Yeah,
I thought that was
but
really
she
amazing.
also was very subservient to her husband.
Yes. Yes, and to her children.
Yeah, she took
Yeah.
last, right? She went last.
Yeah. But what she did career-wise for herself is just amazing. I just started listening to that podcast, which are her actual diary tapes from when she was living in the White House. And it's on it's free on Apple Podcasts, but amazing woman for the time that she was in to be. I mean, it was the 60s, but here she was, this docile, she was Doris Day according to like her family, but you get out there and she was Rosie the Riveter.
I had to say Eleanor was really, she always stands head and shoulders above many. And I liked how he depicted her. She didn't walk, she ran everywheres. And, you'd hear stories that people say that she really was the confidant and she had a lot to do with his presidency. And you could see it through from, what Mr. West depicted and told. I also thought he did a really good job of not bringing politics into it, ironically, in a political book, and the dirt and the smut and all that, because there would have been a lot of opportunities. He touched on it a little bit with Roosevelt, but he kept it all above board.
And humorous, like the
yeah.
lights and things like that.
Yeah.
He did it in a humorous way.
And then I was thinking, well, what's going to happen with, JFK? Because we've all heard those stories. However, the only thing that he alluded to was that Jack entertained a lot when Jackie was away. And then it was in between the lines. He was very respectful, But I think this is great. I mean, this book was copyrighted, many years ago. And I think there's a lot of authors and writers and media people that could take away from his delivery.
Well, it was
we
also
are in a democracy, and this guy worked through all these different presidencies, and it just supports the democracy in the free country that we live in.
Yeah, and the delicacy in which he had to work amongst everyone to keep the peace, like how he managed to fire, who was it? He had to fire that one cook for Jackie Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he made it sound like it was the greatest privilege. I mean, that is a talent.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I will tell you, having worked in politics for so many years, I was working as a teacher at a school district, and I left that to go into politics because there was less politics in the job. Because if you're in like a school district, you have the same budget, and the staff, the admins, the paraprofessionals, the parents, everyone fights over that same penny, and it's very catty. And so I left teaching, I went into politics, and there was almost no politics in the job when I was working in a partisan office, because if you don't all work together, nobody has a job the second Tuesday of November. So it's the least political job I ever had, was working in politics for a political party.
That's interesting.
Well, and I think that's very true in this industry as well. You have to stay neutral, and that's true when I did design and now in the sales role. You really have to keep focused on, your eye on the prize, so to speak, and put other things aside.
Sometimes when they were talking about the Roosevelt administration, when like they had so many people staying there, I kept having to look at the back of the book at the floor plans, because I'm like, where the heck are all these people staying?
That like really got me. Like that kind of, I want to say that almost like sucked me in, because sometimes when I begin a book, I'm a slow reader, you know what I mean? And it's got to catch me. But that caught me because I was intrigued, like you were, Nikki, like, oh my gosh, I thought, the people that live there just be the first family, and, obviously some servants and things in support staff, but that it could be like a revolving door. And
Like Obama's mother-in-law lived with him.
Well, and
it's like
there was another. She wasn't the first extended family,
right?
And
no, but
lived there like every time.
Well, I thought it was funny that he was so worried about the lights, but he thought nothing of bringing 20 extra people to every luncheon.
Yeah.
It's like you just saved a quarter on electricity, but you just blew $1,000 in food budget.
I always heard about him though, like raiding the kitchen, but he didn't really talk about that in the book.
Yeah.
But he did go around at all hours, so obviously it was all hours is when he would. And, Lady Bird was trying to keep him on a low cholesterol diet, like way back then. It's like, well, you shouldn't say way back then, but Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting also the way they had to adapt for the different family dynamics, like they came in, their children were different ages. So when you think about the Kennedys with their really, really young children, and then you think that, the Nixons came in, their girls were older, their girls got married in the White House, and just how they had to change that around. And that when the Roosevelts were there, their kids all lived up on the third floor. Their kids were nowhere near where they were.
Yeah.
And, and Jackie's like, no, my kids have to be right next to me. So I found that the way they had to move the spaces around and manipulate, and this came as another surprise, because I just thought wherever the president's bedroom was, that's where it was. Everybody stayed in this, didn't matter. So there were quite a number of things that took me by, and the fact that, the way they wouldn't like the way the previous person did things, I found that fascinating.
Yeah. Especially like whether they sleep together, sleep apart, and how far apart. And
there was a lot of sleeping apart. And I think that was sort of indicative of that era too, though.
I have lobbied for that in my marriage. He snores like a bear and I sleep very light, and it's like I love having him there when I'm trying to go to sleep, but then when he falls asleep and it sounds like an espresso maker, there's many a nights I find myself holding that pillow because you can't sleep with it. So I'm not opposed to that sleeping apart thing, especially when you got a president who's getting up at 4 a.m. to read the papers and be briefed and everything to go to 7. I'm not a morning person. So I'm not opposed to that.
Well, the other thing that kind of caught me by surprise a little bit was the afternoon nap. Everybody got one. I thought that, I'm like, you are the leader of the free world and you get a nap every day? What?
They-
Must be nice.
well, I will tell you, one of my heroes is Ben Stein, and he was Nixon's speechwriter, and he was the first public servant to lobby to have a sleeping bed in his office so that he could take naps because he proved it was more productive. And I've told my boss this and now 1,000 times, and they will not let me put a bed in the office.
Well, it does seem like Truman he liked his afternoons off, but he worked very hard in the morning and very hard in the evening.
Yeah.
That was an interesting schedule to keep.
Well, they all keep different schedules too. Like, I mean, I know obviously like Obama's not in this book, but I've heard that he was a really late starter in the White House. So.
Did anyone read her book?
No.
Michelle Obama's? I highly recommend it.
Oh, really?
I highly recommend it. They're amazing family. And she is anti-politics and, you know, never wanted that political life for her daughters, but she knew who she was marrying. And but just amazing perspective of the White. She only went into the Oval Office twice in the entire time that he was in office.
Wasn't that the case with Jackie? She I want to go to his office, like she hadn't been there.
Yeah.
After he was assassinated.
Yeah.
And that kind of blew me away.
She was she was going to surprise him. She was redecorating it. It was
Yep.
going to be red. I don't think the office has ever been red. And so she thought that when she returned from Dallas, it would be done, and they had already torn it apart.
Okay, I must have had a blurb there that I didn't
Isn't that
comprehend.
how it went?
I remember the red because she said there's too much blue, and she had what was her term about blue? She had a term how blue made her what she yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back to that chapter and reread it. You know, that sometimes happens. I have a son who's an avid reader. He, a couple summers ago, was stricken with really, really bad back issues to the point where he was just kind of not flat out, but he couldn't do anything. And he was just going nuts. And he's a very active person physically and mentally. So I said to him, I go, well, you know, read a book. And like you said, somebody said that they did it by audio, they cheated. And when he was much younger, he had issues and he was able to he would read a book on audio, listen to it on audio, and then he started reading it at the same time. And he will still do that with some books because he reads, like, these books are like that thick now, and he loves history. So I don't know what I was getting at. Oh, he makes notations in his books. Like, you can't read his books after he wrote, you know, because I told him, I'll give you this book when I'm done with it, because I said, I think you'll enjoy it because it's so historical. But, you know, this book was one where I was like, yeah, I should make notations. I joked with him, like, right. You know, I should do notations on it. I go, but then you wouldn't be able to read it. And I don't collect books anymore. I pass them on.
I unless it's a first edition, it's not going to be in my house. No. It's just something to collect dust after you've read it once.
Yeah.
I mean, some books are old friends and I like to go back to them multiple times, but that's what libraries are for.
I do have one notation that I picked up on during the Eisenhower administration when the dog peed on the rug, and the National Society of Interior Designers redid the room for them, and she was so grateful. And I looked up that organization, and they're the precursor to ASID. So there was two organizations, the National Society of interior designers and the American interior designers, and they merged and became the American Society of Interior Designers. I thought that was kind of an interesting little,
Yeah.
since we're reading it for ASID, I thought, oh,
Yeah.
isn't that nice? But it makes me wonder, like, how much of the White House is still donated like that. Like, they really, in the 60s, with starting with Jackie Kennedy, really started to up the donation game and that. But how much of it is still today, like a donation, like, we need a new rug, who's going to donate it?
Mhm. Yeah. I wonder what it's, and I also wonder, when if you've ever visited, you're only shown those particular rooms, I wonder, what's going on there today, that's kind of, because it's like now it's, they're in their first 100 days. So I'm sure that Joe Biden's wife is, if, I don't know, you don't know what her interests are either.
Yeah, or if she's even that interested, since it's temporary housing for her, if she's like, yeah, I got a house.
Yeah, if they spend, like, I remember during the George Bush, a second, I forget, he's got the different middle initial, but before 9/11, I had heard that Laura she really didn't spend any time at the White House. She stayed in Texas at their home. And then after 9/11, she moved up there. So I don't know if there's any truth to that. It's off topic of the book.
Yes, that is true. And it's George W. But she didn't really stay there until after 9/11.
Yeah.
And then emotionally, she felt she needed to be with him.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
off topic, that's one of the things where Michelle Obama said it was the Sandy Hook shooting was the only other time she went to the president's office. He called her to come down when it happened because he just needed her there with him. So
The other thing I kind of noticed about this book, that Mr. West doesn't talk that much about his personal life, but he does mention his wife Zella a lot, and then he had 2 girls. But he also mentioned frequently he works 6 hours or 6 days a week, and often, he had a bed in the place because he would have to be there for so long. I just sometimes wonder, gosh, how did he land such a supportive wife? She really, she probably had to face an awful lot of things without him because he was needed by the first family.
well, you make all the first daughters proms, weddings, and stuff like that, but you don't get to your own kids. He's probably been on site for more proms for the first ladies' families than for his own daughters.
Were they not? Wasn't he wasn't military, but he worked for the military, right? Was he a civilian in the military? And that's how I'm going back to when he got the position through the Roosevelt era.
I believe he started in the civil military. So he was a civilian appointed at a military destination and moved right from there to the White House. So
yeah, so
she knew what she was marrying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what a supportive. I also think maybe too, Nikki, like that was his way to maybe he separated, you know what I mean? When he would go home, he was home and he was present with his family, unless he got one of those calls and he'd get there in 20 minutes or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And drop everything.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But you wonder, I wondered about, okay, when do they get vacations? When do the staff get vacations? And,
when they're at Camp David.
Yeah.
When they're at Camp David or they're overseas traveling, you get the vacations.
I'd like to know what his house looked like because he spent so much time renovating and taking care of the White House. What did his own house look like?
We left that up to Zella.
Yeah.
Probably never wanted anything to change.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense to me.
Did anyone watch the movie The Butler?
No.
Oh,
I don't think so.
okay.
It doesn't ring bells.
Forrest Whitaker. It's a true biography of the butler for the presidents. And I found a lot of similarities to that story and this story of, although the butler had a lot more political sides in it because like sometimes they would just want, you know, a non-staff member, a political staff member to address a topic, or the presidents would ask their opinion, and that's how they kind of and he was a black butler during the civil rights movement, so it was very interesting. So if you have time to Netflix and chill, I recommend The Butler.
I think this would make a great movie. It would have
Yeah.
to be like really compressed, but you know, there's parts of it that would be like the comings and goings and all that, so.
Do you think a movie
Thank
like
you, Sandra. This was a really, really great choice. What's the next step with the book group? Is it gonna continue like on a
It'll be,
timely basis or?
yeah, like a quarterly basis.
Okay.
So do we have recommendations for the next book or type of book we'd like to read?
Read a
Shh,
book.
don't all talk at once.
I did read a book about the Vanderbilts that, again, the conversations, the part of the book that dealt with the mansions, I found interesting. But I don't want to recommend the next book because I recommended this one.
I read a historical fiction about Frank Lloyd Wright's Mistress that was very good. And I gotta look again, this was a book, I think I read it, it was a year ago. It was a COVID read, and I put it in my little library here in the neighborhood. I'd have to look it up, but that was quite interesting.
Yeah, email it when you find it.
Okay.
It would be interesting to learn about that Lady Remington in California, where she has those staircases to nowhere.
Oh
I
yeah.
wonder if there's a book about her. Well, her house.
Smith and Wesson.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
yeah.
wrong gun. Sorry.
wrong gun. But yes, there's a bunch of books and there's a really good movie about it.
Watch the movie.
So is it haunted, Nikki?
Oh, it's haunted. Yeah, well, the movie was fictional.
Yeah. She had she built all those so that the ghosts couldn't find her. So as long, and the construction goes on 24 hours a day. It's very interesting. But from a design standpoint, it's kind of, she does what the spirits want. So I don't know if that's what you'd like to see.
Now I found the book. It's Loving Frank.
Loving Frank.
By Nancy Horan, Horan.
Loving Frank.
It's not a very long read. It was an easy read, as I recall, but it was kind of interesting.
I like the cover.
Cool. Well, I think it's time to conclude our first meeting as a book club. Unless anybody has anything else to add about the book.
No.
I thought,
I really enjoyed it. It was that's what I think is great about book clubs or a book group. It pushes you out of your normal path, or it opens your mind to something different. And this discussion is kind of fun too, about, how people perspectives on things, takeaways.
yeah. So now whenever there's an administration change, I'm going to think about it. Like,
Yeah. And like Sandra said, it's really, it's great now. So, Nikki, where are you located?
I'm in Buffalo.
You're in Buffalo, okay. And Emily, where are you?
I'm Sandra's student at Villa Maria.
Awesome.
And Ria, you're
Maria?
Toronto.
Toronto, wonderful. How are things up there? Is it opening up at all?
Not yet. Cases are going up, so they're trying to decide what to do now. Things are starting to open, but they're not so sure now. So we'll see.
Probably lockdown again.
oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, ours are going down.
Yeah. They were.
How's your vaccine? Have you guys got vaccines yet, or?
Yeah. We're behind you, but yeah, they're speeding it up now. So, yeah, they're talking about putting kids in virtual for a while again, for a little bit. Spring break was pushed to April from March. So we'll see. It's I don't know. It's not encouraging yet from where we're seeing it.
No.
It's still ups and downs to come, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I have a colleague that's in Toronto, and then I have another one that is up in Vancouver. And it's funny, like, what did you guys think about the politics in the book? You know what I mean? Reading about our presidency, because she's like, oh, I love following your politics.
Nobody here watches Canadian politics. It's really nothing's happening. So what's happening in the US? No, it was very interesting to me. Not so much politics in this book, but we otherwise watch what's going on.
Yeah.
Are we more was the Trump show more fun to watch than the British royal family?
I wouldn't say fun. I mean, it was captivating. Like you couldn't stop watching it. I was like,
it's like a train wreck.
Yeah. I don't want to say that because, I don't want to offend people in a different country, but it's a little bit like that at times. Yeah. I mean, the royal family, they haven't been as busy lately, as much as a lot was happening with Trump, especially around the election. So there was a lot of news every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just watch American news all the time, I guess.
Okay.
What I've seen.
My daughter in England said she just stopped telling people she was from America. She was just too embarrassed. She just used her British passport. She's like, it's like a reality TV show that should have been canceled a long time ago.
Well, we know it doesn't represent everybody, which is just we were worried about a lot of the things that were happening, obviously, with
that's because we all threatened to move up to Canada. Your population was about to triple.
Canada was like, no way, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
I'm going to show my ignorance.
Oh, well.
Okay.
That's a great thing.
Central housing establishment in Canada,
Sorry, what did you say in the beginning?
Is there a central housing establishment for Canadian government officials, or is that
Rideau Hall.
Rideau Hall, like the White House. There is I think a residence in Ottawa that they take in turn, but I actually have to read up on it. I don't know if there's any.
Trudeau's not living there right now. They found that it had it was either lead or asbestos or mold, or there was something, and so he had young children, and the price tag to clean it is huge. So I don't know that he's actually lived in the prime minister's residence the entire time.
He was doing his press conference in front of this house when
Yes.
we were in lockdown. So I assume that was the residence because he would come in and out of there. It wasn't
That's his residence, but that's not the official. And the governor general has an official residence as well.
You know more than me because we only watch what happens out of us. But
I have to confess, I'm from Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Where are you
Wow.
now? You're not here now, are you? Or
No, I live in Buffalo now,
oh yeah.
but all my closest family, they're all in Toronto. So
Okay.
Oh, wow. You haven't seen him in over a year now.
no, I can't get across the book because my closest family member is my brother, and he wasn't siblings weren't close enough. I
oh,
could visit a parent, I could visit a child, but a brother wasn't a close enough family member to be able to cross the border.
Wow.
I've actually seen my daughter that lives in the UK twice during COVID. But I mean, like when she flies in, she's got to quarantine for like 4 days and be tested twice. And then even then we would go out to a parking lot and everyone would sit in their car and, we just have a cocktail party with all the family cars parked. So nobody actually got closer, but I at least got to see her twice. That I can't imagine not being able to see my family.
I haven't seen any of my kids.
Oh, they're all up there.
That would hurt.
No, my kids, I have 2 boys in Texas and my daughter's out in the Wyoming, Idaho area.
Okay. Have you gotten your vaccination yet?
Me? Yes.
Yeah.
I have both the Pfizer shots. So
Yeah. And those are the most effective. The Pfizer. I was happy I got that. Oh, well. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to extend this, but I just wanted to make sure that we spent this hour together. I wanted to make sure I knew where everybody was if I run into you.
well, and Sarah, where are you?
I'm in Rochester area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just down the thruway. So
Yeah. Who do you
Okay.
work? Do you work for a firm or do you work for yourself?
no, I'm the rep for ARCOM,
Oh, okay.
Fabrics and Wall
Cool.
Coverings. Yeah. So I
We
think
have
I saw you last at the pop-up, the trunk show thing at Villa.
Yes.
I was gonna say you looked familiar.
And I know, I was like trying to place where I saw you, Emily. So awesome. So
That was a nice event. I'm glad there was the IIDA that organized that, but that was a nice event.
yeah.
Yeah, we would love if people are interested in putting one of those together for any of your areas. The chapter would love to help you and advertise it and get people in your area. We do have, we encourage people to have smaller gatherings throughout because we have such a large graphic zone. Like right now, we can't get together with people in Canada and we really don't want to get Buffalo, Russia, and Syracuse together. But if people want to do smaller functions, we've had people throw ice cream parties in their backyard before, or just saying, hey, here's my Facebook and we're going to all meet at the Coffee Clutch here, or doing simple showroom tours or CEUs at showrooms. So if anyone's feeling motivated or wants to do a student event,
I would be happy. I
We'd
have a
love to have it.
webinar that's very, it's heavy packed, very pandemic minded, but moving forward. We have a CEU that's going to be coming available to us, but and I've already started my trunk presentations. My car is all set up as a showroom. So
Nice.
people are coming now. The weather's nice. People are coming outside to meet with me. So, or I can come in with a mask on, but that's.
Well, if you decide you want to push that out to the chapter, just give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about it. And I'm right in East Rochester.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. You're right at the Four Corners. I know where you're
right.
Okay. All right.
So thanks everybody. This was great. And Nikki's committee will get together and select the next book and push it out with the next date. Are we thinking 4 times a year is a safe bet? We do a spring, summer, winter, fall?
Yeah, I think so. We were thinking at least 3, maybe 4. The last time we were discussing, sometimes like some seasons can be a little bit harder,
Yeah.
but I hope everybody got something out of this,
Yeah.
and you feel that it was really worth your time.
So,
Yeah, thank you, Nikki.
Yes.
Thank you for thinking of this and organizing it. I think I'm looking forward to, actually, so I've already borrowed the book. I opened up my iPad. Loving Frank. So
Loving
I'm all
Frank?
set. I'm all set. I thought we agreed.
Okay, good. Because I've got it downloading now too, just in case. So if you pick that one, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, and I'll spread the word. I know I reached out to a couple of my clients that I know are ASID members, and one was like, I don't like to read under pressure, but you know what? If you're given enough time, I'll just keep spreading the word, and we get maybe a few more people on here. But
Yeah, and I think if
anyone who has those Audible accounts, you can send a free book to somebody if they're not members. So if you want to send them this Loving Frank book, they could listen to it versus, oh, I know you don't like to read. How about I send you an Audible offer where they let you listen to this one book for free, and then you can see if you're interested.
That's a good
No excuses.
There you go.
So if we all brought a buddy, you know what I mean, and it just keep, yeah.
We had 3 people that registered, and Danny popped in, but she had to go. She texted me and said she had a family emergency, and Jill, our most recent past president, wanted to be here tonight, and she was finishing the book, but her son had made it through the finals of a soccer game. So we do have a couple other people that have been reading the book and are interested. So we'll just try to find a better date for everyone to get together.
Okay.
So, all right, everyone, have a great night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
nice seeing
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank you,
Easter.
Nikki.
Happy Easter.
Thank you.
Easter.